Where does beauty come from? Well, before we answer that question, we have to establish the truth that beauty, in fact, actually exists, because we live in a day where, while there may be disputes between believers and unbelievers over the question of whether or not truth is objective or relative, and whether or not right and wrong is objective rather than relative, by and large, the great mass of the Christian church is more than happy to agree with those outside the Christian church who say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I'm not among that majority, and want to suggest that, in fact, beauty is objective. When the good Lord says that we are to worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness, he is not saying worship the Lord in what seems beautiful to you of holiness. That beauty is something real. I do recognize, and this is one of the reasons probably why Christians were so quick to give up on its objectivity, that beauty is not something that's given to clear, precise, mathematical kind of measurements. I recognize that there's some difficulty in discerning relative merits of beauty in things. But that said, I know also that nobody, just as nobody lives as if there's no right and wrong, and nobody lives as if there's no true and false, nobody lives as if there's no beauty either, objective beauty. I haven't checked lately, but I'm pretty confident that if I were to go to the iTunes store and check out which are the most widely purchased tracks out there, there's probably not going to be a lot of best-selling tracks of car accident sounds, or the music that comes from a butcher house. That we don't find such things. We don't put that on our playlist when we have company come over, and we don't display what the dog left behind on the mantle of our homes. All of these things are an acknowledgement that some things are more beautiful than others, and that is of necessity an affirmation that there is a real standard. But the question we're asking today is, where does it come from? Well, if you've been paying much attention when we do these, where did this come from or where did that come from, the ultimate answer is always going to be God. God is the ultimate cause of all things. And beauty, I would argue, is like truth and like goodness, not just something God likes, not just something God makes, but it is something, in fact, that God is. And there's a reason for that. I would suggest to you that however difficult it may be to define or measure beauty, one of the defining qualities of beauty that's very powerful is that beauty is complexity harmonized. Beauty is complexity harmonized. If you've ever been to a symphony, and you're there early enough to find your seat before the conductor starts the show, you will hear the cacophonous sound of dozens and dozens of very talented musicians trying to get their instruments in tune, and it sounds terrible. But when that conductor begins to wave his baton, all of a sudden these disparate sounds that didn't go together become, well, in a word, symphonic. There is complexity harmonized. That's what I would argue, the key defining quality of beauty. What does that have to do with God? Well, God is complexity harmonized. God, we know, is three persons in one essence. And I want to suggest that that triunity of God is not a superfluous or peripheral quality, but it is essential to his essence. That is his nature to be three in one, which means it is his nature to be complexity harmonized. Whenever you see beauty, even if it came from someone who's not, in fact, a servant of the living God, if you trace it back, you will find it not just coming to God's creative power, but coming back to his essence. Where does beauty come from? Beauty comes from the beautiful, living, triune God.